Is the Republican Party splitting up? On today's episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides, we'll talk about the tweets from different congressional members that Donald Trump is calling out. We'll talk about the strikes that the U.S. did on Iran and the fallout. All that, much more, coming up on today's episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides, starting now.
The moment is here. This is our moment.
America, we are back, baby. Welcome to another episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides. We got a good amount to talk about today. We're going to talk about the ceasefire. We're going to talk about the ceasefire being broken and then going back to it. We're going to talk about a few different tweets that Donald Trump set out. We're going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie. We'll talk about Bernie Sanders a little bit as well. We got a lot of topics today, but I do want to talk about the ceasefire first. What has happened since Donald Trump announced that there would be a ceasefire? They announced that there would be a ceasefire yesterday, called it the end to the 12-day war. I talked about it extremely briefly on the show yesterday because it happened as I was filming the show, so I didn't have too much time to do research on it. They announced the ceasefire last night. They said that it would take place around 5 a.m., Following that, there were more strikes. They were pretty hopeful in the Trump administration that this would be the end of the conflict completely, but Iran pretty shortly after retaliated. Israel dropped over 300 missiles on Iran in pretty critical areas, targeting scientists, military leaders, trying to force that regime change we've been talking about in the final coming hours leading up to the ceasefire. Donald Trump then came up on the media this morning, and this is what he said. And I personally have never seen Donald Trump get like this in the 8 years of politics, or almost 10 years of politics that he's been in the political scene. I've never seen Donald Trump get like this. So take a look.
That have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. You understand that?
It's an all-time quote by Donald Trump. They don't know what the fuck they're doing, but I actually do think he's wrong. They do know what the fuck they're doing. This was purposefully planned. They wanted a regime change. They didn't care about the nuclear facility that much. They cared about the regime change. They cared about the politics of it. They cared about getting Donald Trump and the United States involved because that's what they paid for. $100 million to Donald Trump's campaign by Adelson, and multiple other members of Congress who took millions of dollars from AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. People should have more problems with the foreign lobbying that's happening in our government. And for the first time, we're starting to see people finally speak out against the Israel lobby. People have been shunned from speaking out against the Israel lobby in fear of being labeled anti-Semites or almost being kicked out of the political scene. Marjorie Taylor Greene today spoke out against a reporter at Fox News. I'm going to put this tweet up on the screen for you guys real quick. The tweet reads as follows. Mark, you have the exact same tone and language that the psychopaths use that send me death threats every single day. You should be fired from Fox News, and shame on Fox if they condone this. Let me introduce you to my friend Jesus. He says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus is the one and only Son of God. Jesus was put to death on a Roman cross and died as one-time sacrifice for our sins. Jesus is the Lamb of God. You can read about Jesus in Isaiah 53:5 through 12. Jesus will return one day, and those that did not recognize him will mourn. He will bring everlasting peace to all the earth, and his kingdom will have no end. Jesus also says, pray for your enemies. I will do my best to pray for you, but I will be watchful now. There was once a great president that the American people loved. He opposed Israel's nuclear program, and then he was assassinated. I am for peace. I oppose war, including wars Israel wages. Should I feel that my life is in danger now too? What about President Trump, who strongly rebuked Israel this morning for continuing to attack Iran? I don't love every single thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I do think she shields for President Trump in too many ways. I love Trump too, but I'm not a Trump absolutist like she is. But I do think her actually standing up and saying the quiet part out loud that people have been wanting to say for a long time in our government, that JFK was murdered very shortly after he opposed Israel's nuclear program, after he says he wanted inspections of Dimona, and after the prime minister of Israel resigned the next day after JFK demanded that. And then 2 weeks later, November 22nd, JFK was shot in the head. This is something that I think we can all jump to the correct conclusion. Israel decided to take out our president to be able to sustain their nuclear program. This was an attack on our sovereignty, an attack on our nation, and something that was buried by our government because of Israelis' influence in our government. We have way too much foreign influence in our government. It's not just Israel. There are many countries who have influence on our government, but currently Israel is the one dragging us into a war. Israel is forcing us to push a regime change in Iran. Israel is putting American lives at risk by continuously trying to control the Middle East. The United States has no place funding these wars. They have no place funding these countries at all. I've talked time and time again about how our allies are not really acting like our allies. We need to continue to put America first by stopping the funding that goes to all these nations and putting that funding towards American patriots and American projects. We need to get the homeless veterans off the street. We need to stop the obesity crisis in this nation. We need to fix the housing crisis that prevents my generation from being able to buy homes. I'm worried about putting Americans first in every way. I'm not worried about sending Israel $3 billion a year so they continue to push regime change after regime change. I'm not worried about sending money to USAID. I'm not worried about sending money to Mexico and to Canada. I'm worried about the homeless veterans, the obese children. I'm worried about the people who are abusing our welfare system. I'm worried about all the problems we have domestically. I'm not worried about these overseas issues that the United States somehow gets dragged into by foreign lobbyists lobbying our politicians and our government. It should be extremely illegal for politicians to take money from foreign lobbyists. Why should anyone be elected into the American government if their first interest is not America first? If your interest is Israel over America, you should not be an American politician. Maybe go to Israel and be a politician there. It makes no sense that American politicians are shilling for Israel and shilling for all these countries that have nothing to do with America and honestly are working against America's interests. What Israel has done over the last 2 weeks has not only been extremely disrespectful to Donald Trump, they completely undermined Donald Trump not following through on the ceasefire, but they have completely gone against our negotiating with Iran. They have pushed us into a war, put our soldiers in the area at risk, put American lives at risk, because we all know Iran has hundreds of sleeper cells all around the world, and definitely a lot in America. I have a flight later this week and I'm nervous to even get on it. There are going to be further reaching implications than what has happened already. I promise this is not over yet. They called a ceasefire, but that does not mean that the regime change is done. You heard it from JD Vance's mouth yourself when I played the video yesterday. This will be going on for the next 3.5 years. They will be doing what they can to destabilize Iran's nuclear program and push for a regime change. It's exactly what Israel wanted. It's exactly what they got. They lobbied in the United States government to push for this to happen, and all it took was 6 months for it to come into play. They were able to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, or at least stop them for a few years. They were able to eliminate a lot of Iran's high military ranking members and a lot of their scientists as well. This is going to destabilize the Middle East even more. This is what Israel does, though. Israel continuously brings the United States along to try and destabilize the Middle East for their benefit. Israel benefits off this. The United States does not. Iran's nuclear facility is not that big of a threat to the United States. I don't think they should be able to have a nuclear bomb. I think we should deter that in some way. But I don't think the way it happened and another country dragging us there is the correct way to do it. Someone very creepily was sitting behind Matt Gaetz on a plane yesterday and was recording his private text message conversations he was having with his mother. I think that person should be prosecuted for recording his private conversations on his cell phone. I think that should be extremely illegal. There should be laws against that. I understand if he's holding his phone and you glance over his shoulder to look, that's still creepy, but videoing it and posting it online is a direct violation of his privacy and should be a direct violation of his Fourth Amendment rights as well. The text messages were pretty much saying his mom was trying to convince him, just agree with Trump. You don't want Donald Trump to call you out, and you don't want the Israelites to call you out if you speak out against Israel, if you speak out against what they're doing. Donald Trump is going along with this because he didn't want to look weak. Israel undermined Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's choices were to either say he got completely undermined and embarrassed by Israel, or to act like he knew about this all along and show strength. Donald Trump obviously chose to show strength because that's what the United States does. The United States cannot have a moment where we show weakness. That would lead to a lot worse things around the world. When Donald Trump showed strength It aligned us even further with Israel than we already were. It aligned us with their lies. It aligned us with this regime change. And when we're aligned with the regime change, it puts us in a really bad situation where this isn't putting America first. America first is what Donald Trump ran on in 2016. It's what he ran on in 2020 and continued to run on in 2024. But Donald Trump went from a self-funded politician to a funded politician. When you take money from lobbyists to get elected, you are going to owe favors. And yes, that is illegal, but it is something every single politician and every single president does who takes money from lobbyists. That is what lobbying is. Lobbying is corrupt. Lobbying is ruining America. Democrats were against illegals coming across the border until lobbyists started going the other way when Donald Trump was coming into office. Obama was one of the strictest people about this. Hillary Clinton said the same thing, and Bill Clinton before them. All Democrats were okay with border policies and American sovereignty until Donald Trump became elected. This is because of lobbying. We got into the foreign wars in Iraq because of lobbying, now because of lobbying, Afghanistan because of lobbying. We forced a regime change in Syria that now put ISIS in charge of Syria because of lobbying. Lobbying is ruining politics, it's ruining America, and it's ruining my generation's hope for the future. This is something we need to eliminate from politics if we want to have any hope for the future. My generation is going to be the generation to revolt against this country if it does not get it straightened out. I do not want that to happen. I love this country. I want America to stand the test of time. But if America does not continue to put America first, we will fall. Every empire eventually falls, and America will fall if it does not get its shit together. I've said this time and time again and will continue to say it. Our dollar is going to shit. People don't want to work anymore, and no one can agree on anything. I don't think we should agree on everything, but we should at least be able to agree on a baseline of common sense. Lobbyists have stopped that as well. They've pushed such a woke agenda and labeled you such crazy things if you don't agree with every woke policy. It is falling apart in America. I want America to get back to the America I've always known and loved. But somehow around 2016 to 2018, when Donald Trump was in his first term, it seems that the media, wokeness, and politics took a complete left turn and everything started turning to shit. Not that it was great before that, but since then, everything has started going further downhill. Socially, it's harder. Monetarily, it's harder. COVID was a complete scam and a lie. Everything that has happened in politics and everything that has been exposed in politics has been absolutely eye-opening. We had the Twitter files. We had censorship on Facebook. We had people getting their money taken and put on no-fly lists by the federal government just because they spoke out their views. And whether you agree with these people or not, these are American citizens who are being targeted like they're Russian or Chinese citizens violating their government. This is not okay in America. America is the greatest country, the land of the free because of the brave, but it is falling because of the hands of woke liberal policies, corrupt governments, and lobbyists. This is something that needs to end. This is something that I hope Donald Trump is able to end. Donald Trump ran on getting rid of the deep state. I don't think Donald Trump is now part of the deep state, but I think Donald Trump currently is not doing much to contribute to ending it. Donald Trump got us in this war because he allowed Israel to manipulate him and manipulate the United States. I don't think Donald Trump will make that move again. I think Donald Trump is as done with Israel as I am, and as done with Israel as Marjorie Taylor Greene is, and as done with Israel as Thomas Massie is. I think Israel has cashed their final check from the United States pretty shortly. Israel is one of our allies, and if they can continue to be one of our allies, that wouldn't be a bad thing. But if they're going to continue to be one of our allies, they need to get in line. They need to stop continuously bringing the United States into regime change wars. They need to stop bringing the United States into these difficult situations and wars. They need to stop having us do all their bidding. They need to stop spying on United States citizens. They literally have Mossad agents so rooted into United States lives that you would never know. They are rooted into American politics, American business, and American institutions. These are problems when the people we are allied with and the people we are funding are using that own money and funding against us to take intelligence against us. The United States should remain the greatest superpower in the world, and if we're going to remain the greatest superpower in the world, we can't let our allies undermine us continuously. I think he realized he was undermined pretty quickly and knew he had to show strength instead of weakness, but I'm sure privately he is showing a lot more strength. He apparently called Netanyahu and laid down the line about do not drop another bomb in Iran after Israel started launching over 300 missiles just an hour before the ceasefire. This is a huge problem that Israel and Iran, just hours before the ceasefire, were continuing to drop missiles on each other. Multiple people were killed in each of the countries. They were bombing houses, hotels, hospitals, and schools. These were not just nuclear facility targets. They were bombing high target areas. They were going for kills. They were going for destruction. Like I said, they're pushing for regime change. They are not pushing for the destruction of Iran's nuclear facility. Yes, that is something they also want, but ultimately for a regime change. And the American-Israeli Political Affairs Committee is pushing for that in our government. They are paying politicians like Ted Cruz, paying politicians like Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer will literally agree with anyone for anyone. If you write her a check for anything, she'll do literally anything. There's a word for that I'm not going to say on the show because I want to keep it relatively family friendly, but I think you guys can get what it is. Laura Loomer is one of the worst people in our government. She shills for literally anyone who's willing to write her a check. These neocons, these people in our government who are willing to be corrupted for any amount of money need to be rooted out as soon as possible. If you voted these people in, vote them out. If you support them, look internally and think, why do you support them? What about them is honest? They are putting other countries over American politics, other countries over American lives. That is not okay. People who live in Mexico should not get priority from our federal government over people who live in America. People who live in Israel should not get priority from our federal government over people who live in America. People who live anywhere else in the world should not get priority over American citizens from the American government. That should not be a controversial statement, but liberals love to find it. Liberals have a problem with that argument. They think the United States needs to supply every single person in the world with money, food, health care, and everything. That is not what my tax dollars should be funding. My tax dollars should be funding American projects, American veterans, the American military, American infrastructure, and manufacturing. That is what my tax dollars need to be funding. My tax dollars need to be helping children in America. I get sick and tired every time I walk out of my house and I see a little fat kid and I think, why is it that this country has an obesity problem? Why is it that we're sending money overseas to fund all these other things, but we can't fix that? Why is it that we can't fix the homeless veterans on the street? Why is it that people are dying of fentanyl in the streets of LA, Philadelphia, and New York City? Why is it that my generation, the number one cause of death is fentanyl, which is poured over the borders, mainly from China, and Canada, Mexico's bringing it over, and they're all allowing China to pour it through the borders into America until Donald Trump stopped it. I have huge problems with how Donald Trump handled this Iranian conflict, but I'm still on Trump. I still love Donald Trump. I think he is doing great things for this country. I think Donald Trump is still in the America First mindset. I just think he got undermined completely by Israel, and he had no other options. The only other option would have been to completely cut ties with Israel, but because of the American-Israeli Political Action Committee, it wouldn't have happened. These are just things that are impossible in our government for us to get rid of, and I think it's something that we need to start doing slowly, because if Israel is continuously funding all the politicians in our government, we will never have that America First perspective. There will always be people in the government who are going to put Israel first, who are going to put the countries first, who are paying them money. We literally have people in this government who don't even like America. Ilhan Omar, Donald Trump talked about her today as well in one of his tweets. He was tweeting about AOC, which I'll talk about too. But he tweeted about how Ilhan Omar literally doesn't even like America, and she's an American congresswoman. That is disgusting. She should be rooted out and honestly deported. Anyone who doesn't like America and lives here, just deport yourself. Go self-deport. Why are you in a country that you hate? Why are you here if you don't like it at all? And why are you specifically trying to bring Sharia law to this country when it has no place in this country? Ilhan Omar comes from a place that is literally a shithole. There's crime ridden the streets. She was lucky to even make it out of there. The fact that she comes to America and shits all over it upsets me so much. I'm extremely upset with the way that people in our government are handling things. AOC as well. AOC went at Donald Trump and is now filing articles of impeachment against Donald Trump for striking Iran. Are you kidding me? Obama, over 500 times without congressional approval, sent missiles, and that is just the baseline number. I'm sure there are hundreds more missiles that Obama sent without congressional approval that I just can't get access to. George Bush did it. Bill Clinton did it. Obama did it. Donald Trump did it. Biden did it. And now, again, Trump is doing it again. This is something that I don't agree with, but it is not illegal. She's nothing more than a bartender from New York City, and she should have stayed that way. She is not smart. She is not intelligent. She lies to her constituents. She is from a high upscale neighborhood in the Bronx, but yet she claims she's from the slums and she's just one of the people. No, she is not one of the people. She is a neocon. She is somebody in our government who needs to be rooted out immediately. She is a huge problem in our government. She lies, she steals, and she is corrupt. I have huge problems with AOC. She wears her tax the rich dress to the $75,000 Met Gala ticket. Yeah, great job taxing the rich. Maybe just donate that $75,000 the next time instead of spending it on a ticket to the Met Gala so you could have some pictures taken of you in your tax the rich dress. You are part of the oligarchy you're trying to fight. You and Bernie Sanders take private jets around the country fighting the oligarchy. I have access to my private jet all the time. Every American citizen does. You guys are ridiculous. The fact that you guys are flying private jets, spending at a minimum $20,000 a flight, mainly taxpayer-funded flights as well, to travel the country to push your stop the oligarchy agenda. You are the oligarchy. You are the problem. You are the people in our government who need to be rooted out. I don't like Bernie Sanders either, but at least Bernie Sanders is a little more level-headed than AOC. AOC is a complete moron, a complete hothead. AOC is somebody who has no place in government. She doesn't even have a place in most jobs. AOC is somebody who would be an HR disaster and a complete nightmare to deal with. She has nothing but complain and try and make the life of Donald Trump more difficult. She tries to fight Donald Trump on everything. She tries to sue Donald Trump in her state, just like California and a lot of other states, over ICE, over deportations and things that should be allowed. Donald Trump got elected on deportations. Not only deportations, but mass deportations specifically. Joe Biden allowed the invasion of 10.5, at a minimum, million illegal aliens. I always say 10.5 because it's a debated amount whether it was 10.5 or 20 million. They estimate it was up to 20 million. I say 10.5. More realistically, it's probably closer to 15 million people snuck in those 4 years. If you don't think that there's Iranian sleeper cells who snuck in that time, if you don't think there's Chinese Communist Party sleeper cells who snuck in that time, Russian sleeper cells who snuck in that time, if you don't think there's countless terrorist organizations, countless gangs, and countless drugs that were smuggled across the border in those 4 years, it is very obvious what happened. It is very obvious that Joe Biden purposefully allowed it. It is very obvious that the Biden-Harris regime neglected to take care of the border and that Donald Trump needs to do it. Donald Trump needs to deport all these people for the safety of American citizens. I don't care if you're working in this country illegally or committing crimes in this country illegally. You should be deported either way. You violated U.S. Code 8-1325. You violated my sovereignty and my country's sovereignty. You violated our country, and if I broke into your country, I would be deported. If I broke into Mexico, I'd be deported. I'd be jailed for 10 years. In North Korea, I would be killed. And some countries, they would literally torture me. The United States needs to deport people. I don't think we should be torturing. I don't think we should be killing. I think we should be deporting people to their nations. We are a lot more sane than most nations around the world. And the fact that people think that liberals think that Republicans are these terrible people and comparing us to Nazis for carrying out mass deportations, I wouldn't even classify them as mass deportations yet. We're not going to hit the Obama numbers, which is sad. Obama deported over 5 million. And I don't think Trump will get even close to that, which I want, like I said, at least 10.5 million. They're trying to get to a few thousand a day, and they're struggling to get there because of all the hurdles. The liberals are trying to sue Donald Trump over these things. States trying to sue Donald Trump. You have governors and senators trying to sue Donald Trump and his administration over the deportations. They're trying to sue ICE. They're trying to sue Tom Homan. They're trying to sue Kash Patel. They're basically trying to sue the entire Trump cabinet for trying to push through Donald Trump's agenda that he got elected on, the agenda that the American people voted for, the agenda that Donald Trump does have the authority with his executive branch power to put forward. This is the America First agenda. Donald Trump in 2016 said, America First will be our credo. America First will be the saying of this nation. For the first time ever, we will put America first in every way. American manufacturing, American jobs, American dollars, no new wars, and supporting American veterans and American citizens through growing our economy domestically. These are things that liberals fail to understand. Liberals want all our manufacturing to be shipped overseas. That's one of the reasons I think Bernie Sanders is at least a little more sane. Bernie Sanders, he might not agree with all of Donald Trump's tariffs, but at least he does agree with the fact that we need to bring the manufacturing back to the United States. The fact that these companies are allowed to basically use slave labor overseas. How is that okay? How are we supporting that? How is it that everyone in the world has an iPhone and we're all okay supporting slave labor? We all have Apple products. We all wear Nike shoes. We all support the slave labor all around the nation, and nobody says anything about it. Liberals, the same party who are like, who's going to pick our cotton if we free the slaves, the same party saying, who's going to make our iPhones if we bring them domestically? Who's going to make our shoes if we don't have a kid who literally lost a couple fingers doing it last month? Do you know what happens in these sweatshops in Vietnam, in China, where they have kids literally making 25 cents an hour and people making 50 cents an hour living in boxes outside these factories? And they have to put suicide nets around the Apple factory so people don't kill themselves. These are terrible places. These are the slave labor that liberals are supporting. These are the slave labor that liberals are supporting when they don't push forth Donald Trump's America First agenda. Bring tariffs to bring back manufacturing to stop the slave labor that's happening in other countries. Put sanctions on the countries that are using slave labor. We need to punish the companies who are using slave labor and selling it to American consumers. I don't want my products to be made by slaves. I want my products to be made by American workers supporting the American economy and supporting the American dollar. When they try and come up to America through the Darien Gap by the coyotes and the cartels, it's one of the reasons Donald Trump named the cartels a terrorist organization. People are always like, oh, James, why are you anti-Donald Trump bombing Iran? You talk about bombs all the time. Yes, I talk about us bombing specific things. I've talked about us bombing the cartels. I think we should do targeted missile strikes to the cartels, but that is the United States doing it on their own accord. It is not Israel dragging us by our heels into another foreign regime change, into another war that has nothing to do with the United States, that is only going to hurt the United States and cost the American taxpayer billions. And when you have politicians in our government who speak out about it, they get rooted out immediately. One of the quickest ways to kill your career in politics is to speak out against Israel. Everybody in our government knows that. That's why nobody in our government does it, even the people who don't have that highest opinion of Israel. Marjorie Taylor Greene specifically. You saw it in a tweet. She literally talked about JFK getting murdered by Israel. The USS Liberty as well was another thing. They sunk our ship purposefully and then claimed it was an accident, even though it had American flags and was actively broadcasting that we were American. These are problems deeply rooted in our government that we need to root out. And it's not something, it's like just vote these people out and we'll move on. No, these are deep-rooted institutions that need to be rooted out. The institution of lobbying, to get lobbying made illegal, the amount of people who are going to lobby to not have lobbying made illegal, it's going to make it really hard. That's the problem with it, is that's what these people are good at. When you try and make things illegal like that, lobbyists are going to push for lobbying to stay legal, because that's literally their entire job, and it's corruption, and the amount of money behind it is way higher than you could guess. There are billions, if not trillions of dollars behind lobbying in the United States specifically, and not just in the United States. We lobby in other countries and they lobby in ours. When we lobby in other countries, we're trying to do good things for America, bring back jobs over in America, and we're trying to continuously push for safer areas across the world. When other countries are lobbying in our government, it is costing our taxpayers money. I'm not saying I think we should be lobbying in other countries, but I definitely don't think they should be lobbying in ours. I think the entire lobbying industry is one of the most corrupt parts of our politics. We are now seeing people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, Matt Gaetz. We're seeing these people speak out against Donald Trump, speak out against the Israel regime, speak out against everything that's happening. This is a huge win for America. I think Israel and their current administration is trying to drag the United States into another war, which I would call a regime. I don't think that's okay. I don't think continuously dragging your allies into foreign entanglements and then still cashing checks of $3 billion a year from us is disrespectful. At a minimum, that's disrespectful. You could really make the argument that Israel is not really even our ally, that they don't do much to help us besides the bare minimum amount of intelligence they give us. If Israel was not lobbying in the United States government the way they are, we would still most likely be allies with them. We just wouldn't be dragged into foreign entanglements time and time again. Israel wouldn't attack the United States if we weren't allies, because the United States would be able to eliminate Israel in an hour. Israel is a very small piece of land with not a ton of people. Compared to America and our military strength and power, it does not even compare. The thing Israel does have is intelligence. Mossad is extremely useful to them. It's their equivalent of the CIA. And Mossad has been lobbying and infiltrating the United States government for a very long time. This is something that we're seeing extremely clearly now. We see it every time we see a politician get rooted out of the United States government. And we see it when we see people like Nick Fuentes get his money stolen. No matter what anyone thinks of people like that, people love to call him an anti-Semite and a racist. But Nick Fuentes has been right about every single thing that has happened over the last 2 weeks. Nick Fuentes has spoken out against Israel from the very beginning that they are not putting America first. And I trust him on that because his whole platform is America first. Whatever you think about his politics or every single one of the things he says is almost irrelevant when you think about he has been correct about all this. He predicted this 4 years ago. He predicted it again 2 years before. And it all just came true. Everything that he said would happen 4 years ago on his show just happened in Israel and Iran. This is a huge problem that we're allowing these foreign governments and foreign lobbyists to infiltrate the government and push American politicians in the wrong direction. It is ruining this country, and it is something that I am so upset about. I want to get into the timeline of everything that's happened since the ceasefire, because we do have a little bit of that to talk about before we sign off today. But let's get into the timeline of everything that happened, and then I'll talk about what I think will happen in the next couple days, what I'm worried about, what I'm excited about, and then we'll sign off from there. So I already told you guys about the ceasefire. Donald Trump announced the ceasefire. He said it would take place at 7 a.m. hours before Israel and Iran are both bombing each other. An hour before, Israel's dropping over 300 extremely targeted bombs on Iranian sites, houses, popular cities, military locations, things like that, killing hundreds. And then Iran as well, I think, killed about 5 Israelis with targeted attacks too. And Donald Trump, after negotiating this ceasefire and being extremely firm with Netanyahu and Iran, was interviewed by the media today, and you heard it. He was like, they don't know what they're doing. They do know what they're doing. They're doing it very purposefully, but they don't know that Donald Trump is about to just lose it with Israel. Donald Trump is going to be the first president since JFK to stand up to Israel. I think it's going to happen very soon, and I am very excited about it. Donald Trump seemed more fed up this morning, and on his plane ride, every time before he takes a plane, they post a little live stream. They call it Donald Trump gaggling with the media. I've never seen Donald Trump more tired in my life. I've seen thousands, if not millions, of videos of Donald Trump over the years. I've never seen Donald Trump look more tired, exhausted, and defeated in his life than I did in that live stream this morning when he was on the plane gaggling with the press. He was talking about Israel and Iran finally agreeing to the ceasefire, finally stopping the bombs after bombing each other this morning after the ceasefire was announced. He was talking about the potential future of the bill, Thomas Massie, AOC, announcing articles of impeachment against him. There's obviously a lot on his plate. It's stressful when your greatest ally undermines you very publicly to the entire world, and then when you negotiate a ceasefire to end the problem, your greatest ally undermines you. Again, Israel made America look stupid twice in the last 2 weeks. They made America look stupid when they dropped the bombs originally, got America involved in this, saying that, oh, yeah, we are targeting their nuclear facility, but we can't actually destroy it without the United States' help. But we did already start it, so you guys better join in now. That was a huge embarrassment for the United States. And then the second huge embarrassment is negotiating the ceasefire and then launching 300 targeted missiles at the people you just agreed to have a ceasefire with. What the hell is that? What is Netanyahu up to? What is Israel trying to do? Why are they pushing this regime change? Why are they pushing the United States in it? And if they want this regime change, that's their business. I don't care, honestly. If they want a regime change in Iran and if they want to destroy Iran, I could not give two shits. As long as the United States is not involved, I don't care. As long as it's not my tax dollars and no military force, I don't care what Israel does. I don't care what any country does as long as the U.S. isn't involved. I want to put America first, American citizens first, American politics first, America everything first. That's all that matters to me. But again, let's get back into this timeline. To get back into the timeline, Donald Trump announced a ceasefire, and then moments after, Iran fired about 20 missiles, and Israel fired about 300 missiles right into Iran. So the strikes continued, and then at 7 a.m., the ceasefire technically kicked in. Then at 10:30 a.m., there are sirens going off in Israel saying that there are 2 inbound ballistic missiles. Iran denies the claim that they sent any missiles after the ceasefire. Israel claims that they did. This is claimed to be a false flag by Iran, and then Israel says, no, it was a blatant attack. We'll probably never know what actually happened, but after that, Israel loads up their planes with bombs, and they scramble their jets. And then Donald Trump calls Netanyahu and says, do not drop those bombs, turn the planes around, and go home. There is a ceasefire. They immediately make a U-turn upon Donald Trump giving that message. Tehran was struck and no further major attacks proceeded. Trump then got in the media, said he doesn't know what they're doing, and that the ceasefire is fully back in effect after the limited symbolic strike. This is obviously Israel undermining Trump one more time, just going for one more key strike on one more facility in Iran. They took out over 100 Iranian military members with those last strikes. This ceasefire is not going to hold, most likely, in my opinion. This is something that I think we will see a false flag in the next few days. I think we'll either see an attack on Americans or we will see an attack on Israelis, and then the war will be back on. I could be wrong on that, and I pray I'm wrong on that. But that is my prediction now. Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes, and other like-minded individuals seem to agree to that statement as well. They have been right about these things for the last 2 weeks, predicting every single part of it. Whether you agree with their politics or not, they have been incredibly correct on all this information. So I assume with this new predictions they have that they could be correct as well. They are extremely knowledgeable people on these subjects. They have put an extreme amount of time and energy into learning about the foreign affairs that the United States is involved in, specifically surrounding Israel, the Middle East, and Iran. Nick Fuentes is one of the most knowledgeable people on this subject, even though people do not like him in the media and politicians in the government refuse to talk to him or do business with him. He has got ousted from mainstream conservatism. He is someone that has been extremely knowledgeable throughout this entire crisis. And he is someone that has been extremely critical of Donald Trump throughout this too, the same way I have. I voted for no new wars. I voted for no new conflicts around the globe. That's what Donald Trump ran on. It's not America first to be dragged into a war by one of our allies. That's actually Israel first. Not for putting Israel first in any way. America needs to be first in every single way. That is what I voted for. That is what the American people want. And that is what this country was founded on, putting America first. Our tax dollars not being wasted. We literally get taxed to insane amounts just for our taxes to be wasted. They started the revolution over a 2% tax on their tea. If you live in California, you're taxed at 33 to 50%. New York, the same thing. There are states like Florida and Tennessee who do it a lot better. But if you are sending money to the federal government every year on taxes, you are having your dollars wasted. All the money and all the time you're putting into working and spending that money there is not going to supporting infrastructure. It's not supporting veterans. It's not lowering the obesity numbers in this country. It's not making it safer in urban communities. All it is doing is supporting Israel, supporting foreign wars, supporting lobbyists, supporting NGOs, supporting government bureaucrats, supporting the waste, fraud, and abuse of our tax dollars, and supporting the destruction of nations that the United States has nothing to do with. Like I said, I don't care if Israel wants to start every war in the world. As long as they don't involve the United States, leave the United States out of it. If you want to be our ally, if you want to take federal dollars from the United States, get in line. I don't think anyone should be able to get federal funding from the United States country-wise. I don't think that's our job. You don't see China funding all these countries. You see the United States funding every country. The United States is consistently the financier of every single regime change and issue around the world, especially in the Middle East. This is something that I have seen every single year since I've been alive. There has not been a year I've been alive that we haven't been in the Middle East. We need to remove ourselves from the Middle East. The Middle East has no place here, and we have no place there. We don't need to control the Middle East. The Chinese Communist Party has an incredible amount of influence in America. Russia has some, but a less influence in America. There are major powers that have a ton of influence in America because of these NGOs, these bureaucrats, and these lobbyists. These are things that I speak out against every day on this show, and if you agree with me, please tune in more often. I'm James Pascalides. This has been episode 75 of America Unfiltered. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Please follow, subscribe, and leave a comment if you have any questions. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.